December 30, 9:41 a.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby, Number 5. Oh yeah. Und damit BAM, Leute! Entschuldigung. Herzlich willkommen zurück zu Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Justice for All. Wir sind hier im vor dem Gerichtssaal wieder in unserer Lobby. Nachdem wir im letzten Part ein bisschen mit Acro rumdiskutiert haben, ein bisschen was von seinem Bro erfahren, der im Krankenhaus sitzt, ziemlich schwer verletzt. Ich weiß nicht mehr genau, was es war, irgendein Gehirnschaden. Ja. Und dieser Unfall, der sein Bruder erfahren hat, der wird wahrscheinlich jetzt in diesem Moment gleich hier im Gericht diskutiert werden. Und was es damit in diesem Fall auch zu tun hat, hat dieser Satz eher einen Sinn gemacht? Ich bin mir nicht sicher. Aber ihr wisst schon, was ich meine. Good morning, Max. Bob. Oh, yeah. Good morning, sweeties. You don't seem like your usual sparkling self today. I'm always like this before I go in front of an audience. I'm working up to it. Teehee. Oh.
Don't get nervous, Maxie. Here, have a glass of milk. Regina.
Oh, fabulous! My sweetie pie princess. You came to watch my performance today.
Of course I did. Mo told me that I should come and watch this.
Mo said that?
So, what kind of performance will you put on today? Let me guess, you'll fly at the end?
It's not that kind of show. Isn't that right, my sweeties? I think my sweetie pie princess doesn't... Yeah, she doesn't seem to realize what's going on, or even where she is.
Well, Max, it looks like it's time to raise the curtain. I'll see you later. Today I'm just a member of the audience.
Fabulous! Enjoy yourself out there.
Good luck, Max. You're the best. Regina's different, don't you think, Nick?
Top of the morning to you. Oh, das war Mo. Everybody, let's get ready to get stuck in legal limbo. How low can you go? Mo. Top of the morning to you, Governor. Oh, the top of the morning. Ich weiß nicht, was ist das für ein Ausdruck? Ich kenne den nicht. Ist es irgendwie eine Begrüßung? Keine Ahnung. Hi. That's the ticket. Attacking the day starts with energy in the morning. The early bird gets the worm, but then again, worm lack higher brain function. Here, Max, I brought you a present. Have some milk. Oh my, thanks. So, how are you today, right? Well, I've got the feeling that today I'm going to face off against the real culprit. You mean Acro?
Huh? You think he did it?
Be careful. Used to putting his life on the line, literally. He got guts to spare. If all I've got to worry about is how thin the tightrope is, I'm used to it already. It means that I won't be able to press him like I can other witnesses.
What are you going to do then, Nick?
I guess today we'll just have to do without our usual psychological warfare. Today we rely on evidence. It's the only way we'll get past Acro and to the truth. Okay, das macht mir ein bisschen Angst. Ich habe ein bisschen Angst um unser Leben.
You're right, but it's gonna be tough.
Anyways, I want you to make sure that Regina sees it all today. It's important. Then she'll finally have to deal with the reality of what happened to her father.
You want us to make sure Regina watches?
Yes, that's why I brought her here to court today. What's that supposed to mean? She needs to know that when people die, they don't just become stars. I may be an old-fashioned clown, but I don't believe in people becoming stars. Alrighty. Maybe it's for the best. Courtroom number 2.
Court is now in session for the trial of Maximilian Galactica.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. The defense is ready, Your Honor.
Very well. Miss von Karma, you may proceed with your case.
The prosecution would like to revise its previous series of events.
What's the meaning of this?
We have discovered a new witness, or shall I say a new eyewitness. One that saw Maximilian Galactica fly off from the scene of the crime.
Order! Order! I had a feeling something like this would come up.
Due to this revision, we are now prepared to explain how the defendant flew that night. An explanation the prosecution will present if the need so arises. In fact, my detectives stayed up all night creating a mock-up of the scene on my orders.
Poor Kamshu. Very well. Please call your witness to the stand.
Time to get to work, or shall I say, time to walk the courtroom tightrope. Hi. Name and Occupation. Was habe ich Ihnen nochmal für eine Stimme gegeben?
Ken Dingling, but everyone calls me Acro. I'm employed as an acrobat at the Very Big Circus.
Where were you the night of the crime?
I was in my room that night.
If you look at the map, you will see the witness's room is near the crime scene.
My room is on the 3rd floor. The crime scene is below my window.
Huh. The night of the crime, the witness saw something quite shocking. Would you tell us what you witnessed?
Okay.
What I witnessed? Tell me, boy.
It was just after 10 p.m. and I was resting in my bed. Around that time, I heard a large thump noise from outside the window. Then, a few moments later, I saw someone flying right by my window. It was Max Galactica. I only saw him from behind, but that's who it looked like. To be honest, when I saw that, I thought I was dreaming. This witness's testimony matches up exactly with that of the clown.
If that's the case, there is very little the prosecution need add. All that's left is to explain how the defendant disappeared into the sky that night. Before we get that far, I'd like to cross-examine the witness. A foolish choice by a foolish fool who wishes to feel the foolish sadness of a sad fool. A man must know the proper timing of things, Mr. Phoenix, right? Just like your old friend, Mr. Miles Edgeworth did.
Mr. Wright, do you have a problem with the witness's testimony?
In the words of Miss von Karma, may I quote yesterday's proceedings? There's no way that actually happened.
Very well, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
Okay, überzeugend. Also, und darf ich jetzt pressen oder nicht? Ich mach mal nicht, außer, ja. It was resting my bed, ja, das ist okay. Around that time I heard a large thump. Then a few moments later I saw someone flying. It was Max Galactica, I only saw him from behind. But that's who it looked like. Ja, das ist halt fishy. When I saw that, I thought I was dreaming.
Akra must be lying about what he saw, right?
Of course he is. Now the challenge will be to expose his lies in court.
Well, put the pedal to the metal, Nick.
Ich würde gerne pressen, und zwar das hier. Aber ich weiß, ja, wir werden ja sehen, ob wir es dürfen oder nicht.
The light in your room was turned off then, right? That's true. I was going to bed after all. So with the lights off, you were still able to clearly see a human fly by your window. Ja gut, man braucht ja nicht Licht im Zimmer, um ihn zu sehen, man braucht das Licht draußen. Aber okay. The safety lights lit things up enough for me to see. But honestly, there was only enough light for me to see the silhouette outside my window. It was the person's back, so I couldn't see the wild roses on the front. Did you see any of the other symbols? I clearly saw the silk hat. Uh-huh. As well as the cloak wrapped around his body. I'm convinced that the person I saw was Max Galactica. The more I press him, the less results I seem to get. Maybe there was something fishy with his latest bit of testimony. Ja, there's a contradiction. Es sei denn, der Hut ist irgendwie später runtergefallen. There's a huge contradiction with the testimony that was just given. If there's a contradiction, then prove it with evidence. What did you say? But you're right, let's see some evidence. Do you have any evidence to support your claim of contradiction? Here, ne? Found at a crime scene. Please. You claim to have seen the exact same thing Mo saw that night. Do you stand by that? What do you mean? The silk hat. What about the silk hat? I saw it on Max's head as he flew by my window. Well, you should have tried looking down out of your window that night. That would have been quite difficult considering the state I'm in. Just looking outside of the window was a tough enough challenge for me. That's a shame, because you would have noticed the silk hat found on the scene. That's the Ringmaster's hat, right? Ringmaster? Das ist doch Dingens. Afraid not. No matter how you look at it, it is Max's silk hat. Where are you going with this, Mr. Wright? Are you saying that Max has two silk hats? No, this is a handmade one-of-a-kind model made only for Maximilian Galactica. Which means, Acro, that you've been fibbing on the stand. Order! As always, it looks like someone just had to open their big mouth before thinking. Are you okay, Nick? Well, I opened my big mouth and now I have to back it up. How about it, Mr. Wright? What would cause this witness to commit perjury in this court today? I express a grudge against Max. Hat er das? Also, nicht mehr als die anderen. Acro's Dreaming ist es ist wieder die funny Antwort. Acro is the real culprit. Wie? Aber würde natürlich Sinn machen zu lügen, wenn er Culprit wäre. Also das ist es definitiv nicht. Er sagt Grudge. Das klingt irgendwie so. Das klingt zu simpel, zu schwach. Und vor allem, er hat ja nicht wirklich einen Grudge. Also ja, er ist halt. Das Einzige, was Sinn machen würde. Und daher presse ich das. Your Honor, on this occasion the defense accuses Acro himself. On this occasion? Accuse Acro? What in the world are you accusing him of? Obviously, we accuse him of the murder of Mr. Russell Berry. Mr. Wright, are you serious? Deadly serious, Your Honor. I think your trips to the circus have served you well. You seem to have learned how to try and grab at an audience's heart and minds. Your Honor, don't allow yourself to be swayed by theatrics. Trying to wow the crowd with smoke and mirrors is the oldest bluff in the book.
Really?
If you don't believe me, just look at the witness. He's calm enough for it to almost be scary.
Aua.
He is staying rather calm and collected.
Ist aber auch ein bisschen verdächtig, ne? Ich habe ihn gerade des Mordes angeklagt und ja, ist okay. Mr. Dingling, do you have any response to the defense's accusation?
I don't really need to say a thing, do I?
What do you mean?
Everyone, take a good look at me. I can't even stand up by myself, let alone leave the lodging house.
That's true.
I understand that Mr. Wright is just trying to help his client. But to do this by accusing me of murder of all things... See, even a sliver of common sense makes it clear the accusation is ludicrous.
She's right, way to pick on the disabled, you heartless, cruel man. Phoenix is a poopy head.
See that, Mr. Phoenix, right? If you're trying to drum up support from the peanut gallery, that's how you do it. I think that's enough of this little game. I've got a doctor's note to confirm that Agro is unable to stand under his own power.
Habe ich einen Fehler gemacht? Ich weiß noch nicht. War es ein Fehler oder war es richtig? Ist ein bisschen viel Text dafür, dass es falsch war, oder?
Maybe the defense is planning on making a claim to counter this as well. I can hear the defense now. Agro had an accomplice.
Das ist vielleicht gar nicht mal so verkehrt. What do you say about this, Mr. Wright? Did Agro have an accomplice? Ja, muss er fast, oder dann? Ja. Ja, wie gesagt, muss er fast, ne, dann? Of course he did. It's impossible for Agro to be the murderer in this case. If that's the case, then it's natural for one to consider possible accomplices. Huh, you don't say. Not good. It isn't going to end well. Ich habe das Gefühl, wir können jeden Moment einfach so zack, Game Over gehen und fertig.
Don't tell me you think you're going to get off easy.
What?
You must not have heard that sound just now. Maybe it wasn't clear enough. The sound of you falling into your own trap can be hard to notice sometimes.
Mr. Wright, it seems as if you won't be stopping at Agro, but will be making other accusations. If Agro did not have an accomplice, things are not looking good for you.
I understand, Your Honor.
Okay, es ist nur ein Schaden. Very well, let's continue. Who, perchance, would happen to be Agros accomplice? Also, wer kommt in Frage? Nö. Maybe. Nein, Mo. Der hat ja eh geschlafen, also nein. Nö, und der ist im Krankenhaus. Also nur Regina. Aber was hat sie getan? Also, sie hat ja diese Notiz bekommen, die sie nicht verstanden hat und dann an die Pin angehängt hat. Aber das würde ich jetzt nicht als... Das würde ich jetzt nicht als Komplizen bezeichnen. Ansonsten, was hätte sie ansonsten noch machen können? Sie war ja nicht an der Scene of the Crime und
Puh, ich weiß nicht. Ja, wir müssen ja fast, ne? Also jeder andere macht keinen Sinn, ne? Also Max wäre Schwachsinn. Ben, der macht eh gar nichts. Mo war ja am Pennen. Wenn er wirklich am Pennen war, aber sollte. Ich glaube auch nicht, dass Mo irgendwas damit zu tun hat. Der macht einen zu netten Eindruck. Ja. Also bleibt ja nur Regina übrig eigentlich, ne? Gammschuh ist der Komplize. Ne? You don't say. Uh-oh. This is suddenly looking very bad. Don't tell me you think you're going to get off easy. What? Jetzt sind wir geloopt? Here what? The sound of you getting caught in your own trap. What a splendid accomplice. I'm sure this accusation is built on a solid foundation. Foundation? Yes, Mr. Wright. Do you have any proof that this person you've accused was indeed an accomplice? Proof that it is an accomplice. Die Note. Was haben wir denn sonst noch hier so? Löwe. Der Löwe hat ihn ja nicht gekillt, ne? Sonst wäre es ja kein Schlag. Ist ja durch einen Schlag gestorben. Broken Bottle. Nee, das ist ja vorbei, ne? Mit denen können wir nichts mehr machen. Das ist ja eigentlich nur in der Cafeteria gewesen. Small Seasoning Bottle. Was es mit dem zu tun hat, weiß ich auch noch nicht. Ja, die Note. Was anderes gibt's ja nicht. Mr. Wright. Yes, Your Honor. This piece of evidence is lacking in persuasive power. You didn't miss that sound, did you, Mr. Phoenix Wright? You know, the sound of you receiving a penalty. Okay, das war falsch. What are you doing, Nick? Did Agra have an accomplice? Hatte er keinen? Also Regina kommt ja eigentlich niemand in Frage, oder? Da muss ich he didn't sagen, oder? Aber dann ist halt irgendwie scheiße, ne? Ich hoffe, das ist keine Game-Over-Entscheidung. Achso, ich kriege einfach ein Penalty, wenn ich... Moment, warum leuchtet das Penalty auf? Das heißt, eine Antwort hier ist falsch. Oder? Das heißt, wenn ich das hier drücke, wähle ich die falsche Antwort aus und ich kriege eine Penalty. Hier habe ich ja keine Penalty bekommen. Erst ganz am Schluss. Oder ist das irgendwie... Das ist so verwirrend, Mann. Aber wer sollte denn der Komplize sein? Ich check's nicht. Also, es geht ja darum... Acro kann nicht laufen. Er kommt ja nicht mal aus seinem Zimmer raus, ne? Ich glaube, das war ja die Debatte. Das heißt... Er bräuchte einen Komplizen, mit dem er... Beziehungsweise, ja, Komplizen. Er braucht irgendjemand anderes, der den Ringmaster umbringt. Wobei, dann ist es ja nicht mehr wirklich ein Komplize, sondern direkt der Mörder. Oder irgendjemand, der ihm hilft. Vielleicht hat er irgendwas aus dem Fenster geworfen und ihn somit getroffen.
Und irgendjemand musste den Ringmaster einfach dahin locken. Das heißt, der Komplize lockt ihn dahin und er wirft dann irgendwas aus dem Fenster. Und das ist ja möglich, ne? Und wer lockt ihn dahin? Es ist ja niemand, es ist ja keine Person dahin gegangen, ne? Nur von den Zeugenaussagen haben wir ja erfahren, dass nur Max dahin gegangen ist. Oder beziehungsweise, nein, nicht Max, sondern also der Mantel, die Mantelperson. Also der Ringmaster quasi, ne? Ist ja nur er hier dahin gegangen. Und es ist auch niemand davon gedaddelt. Weil es keine Fußspuren gab. Das heißt, es war niemand da, oder? Ich mache jetzt he didn't. Now then, this must be when we get to hear the name of the mystery accomplice. Not this time, von Karma. Was, richtig? What? You're not going to sucker me into this one? What are you blabbering about, Mr. Wright? There was no accomplice. Acro planned and committed this murder all by himself. Okay, die Musik klingt gut. Oh, order! What are you getting at? Why do you keep them on their toes, Nick? Now I'm going to have to prove how it all fits together. I have to show how Acro murdered Russell Berry. Can you do it, Nick? Can you really do that? I know what I can't do. I can't stop now. If I stop attacking, I'm doomed. Alright, then let's do it. Okay, also ich glaube, es war richtig, weil die Musik, die erzählt mir, ja, hey Dude, du bist ja auf dem korrekten Pfad, Digga. Mr. Phoenix Wright. If this witness is the killer, then this eyewitness account is all lies, right? Mr. Wright, I'd like you to clear something up for me. When the crime was committed, exactly where was Mr. Dingling? Er war in seinem Zimmer? Ja. He was obviously here the entire time. That's Acro's room. Pretty simple, eh? Acro wasn't able to leave the lodging house by himself. In that case, there can be only one correct answer. Acro didn't leave his room to kill the ringmaster. But what? Are you nuts? What say you, Mr. Dingling? Ja, aber, ja, das heißt, ja, er muss wahrscheinlich es vom Fenster aus irgendwie gemacht haben, ne? It's an interesting theory. That's it? Considering that what you proposed is impossible, yes, that's it. Huh, Mr. Wright? Yes, Your Honor. As the witness has stated, your assertion is impossible. As he is in a wheelchair, there is no way he could go to the scene or be the killer. You've got a point. It seems you've forgotten once again, Mr. Phoenix Wright. The defendant was clearly spotted at the scene of the crime. Ja, nee. Das war ja der Ringmaster. Seid ihr alle deppert? Das haben wir doch schon. Also, ja, wobei, ja, yeah, that's true. Ja, hier, ne? Wir haben nur gesehen, wie der Ringmaster da hingegangen ist. Aber wer das hier ist, das wissen wir nicht. Mo said that he saw Max, didn't he? Whee. But Maya, it's still impossible for humans to fly. Do you mind if I ask a question, Mr. Wright? What is it? I understand some of your logic. However, how do you think that I killed him? If I can't leave my room, I obviously couldn't wear Max's costume. How did he do it? That's the next course of this legal buffet. Stimmt, der muss ja irgendwie... Also er war ja in seinem Zimmer, ne? Also wenn wir jetzt an dem Plan festhalten. Er war in seinem Zimmer, das heißt, er kann nicht im Mantel gesteckt haben. Und der Mantel war ja definitiv da, den haben alle gesehen. Be careful, Nick. If you mess up here... She's right. I can't mess up here. Can I give this one some serious thought? I'm sure that Acro killed the ringmaster, and he did it while he was in his room, no doubt about it. Time to enlighten us as to how Mr. Jingling committed the crime, Mr. Wright. Present evidence, can't present evidence now. How he committed the crime. Also, ihn umgebracht hat er dann ziemlich sicher, wie gesagt, vom Fenster aus. Hat er irgendwas, keine Ahnung, irgendwas runtergeworfen oder so. Was dann auf seinen Kopf gelandet ist und dann ist er halt ausgenockt, ne? Das wollte ich nicht. Back Court Record, please. Haben wir irgendwelche Beweisstücke, die beweisen, wie er das gemacht hat? Was hat er runtergeworfen? Also die Kiste schon mal nicht. Die ist viel zu schwer, ne? Die ist zu heftig. Die war ja wahrscheinlich... Er ist ja... Der Ringmaster ist drüber gelehnt. Das heißt, die Kiste war vorhin schon da. Das heißt, die Kiste war vermutlich das, was ihn dahin gelockt hat, ne? Hat sich gefragt, ey, was macht die Kiste da, ne? Oh, was ist das denn? Und dann zack! Irgendwas von oben, ne? Irgendwie so. Das heißt, was kann er von oben runtergeworfen haben? Den Löwen. Den Affen. Den Hut. Also hier schon mal gar nichts. Ne, das war ja in der Kiste, das kann er auch nicht. Die Bast. Warte mal. Prostitute taken from cafeteria before... Die wurde gestohlen. Before the crime. War die in seinem Zimmer? Haben wir das mal gesehen? Haben wir gesehen, wie das in seinem Zimmer war? Aber wenn er das runterwirft, das Ding, das könnte jemand umbringen. Wenn es direkt auf den Kopf fällt. Ist nur die Frage, warum war das dann nicht am Tatort? Es war ja nur der Hut am Tatort. Und die Kiste. Can't present evidence now. Das klingt immer so verlockend, wenn er sagt now. Heißt, ja, es ist noch nicht der richtige Zeitpunkt. Das ist meistens eigentlich eine gute Tendenz. Can't present evidence now. Ich glaube, ich drücke das, weil das now, das ist immer so verlockend. Das ist eigentlich immer eine gute Entscheidung. Ich mach's. I think we will finally be graced with an explanation. Don't push it, Von Karma. What? You aren't gonna suck me in this time. Schon wieder. It's smart enough to know when I don't have the cards to play and my hand sucks right now.
What do you mean, Mr. Wright?
He means that everything he's said up until now has all been nonsense. It's true, right? If you can't establish proof of your murder theory, then it's nonsense.
He's trying to fool us by playing some misdirection game. Oh, scheiße. Looks like this isn't going to pass muster.
Nick, you've gotta show them some evidence.
Easier said than done. Okay, dann habe ich das Now tatsächlich einfach mal hardcore in die Falle gelockt. Frech.
So, what will it be, Mr. Wright?
I'm going to present some evidence. Okay, ja, gut. Ja, dann würde ich sagen, sticken wir zu Maxes Bust. Würde ich sagen, ne? So das einzige hier drin, was man als Mordwaffe verwenden könnte. Neben der Box, aber wie gesagt, die ist eigentlich zu schwer und er liegt ja über der Box. Das heißt, es wäre seltsam, wenn er von der Box getroffen worden wäre, dann würde er unter der Box liegen. Ne? Von daher probiere ich das.
What's that? A picture?
It is indeed. The problem is with the item that's shown in the picture. Okay, ich glaube, es war richtig.
The bust.
It's quite a large bust, and because it is life-sized, it is also very, very heavy.
Heavy?
Heavy enough to guarantee a certain death, especially if it was dropped from a third-story window.
Ah!
Now you looking bad. See, this is how Acro was able to kill the Ringmaster, with the force of gravity and Maximilian Galactica's ample bust.
Order! So, you're saying the bust fell onto the Ringmaster?
A rather simple crime. Even if you were stuck in a wheelchair, it would be incredibly easy to commit.
How could you possibly wheel a wheelchair with something so heavy? It's impossible.
Well, Acro is an acrobat. He should have more than enough upper body strength to carry something like the bust. Oh, true.
Mr. Dingling, how do you respond to these charges? Well, Acro's at a loss for words.
He should be. He knows that I'm getting close to the truth. Well, Acro, you can't run away. Ow! I'd watch what you say if I were you, Mr. Phoenix, right? What? Your Honor, the physical health of the witness is material to this case. I demand that we get proper testimony from the witness himself.
Testimony, you say?
On karma. He's just using this testimony as a rouse to stall for time. There's absolutely no need for such testimony. The defense has its version of the murder. The prosecution has the right to respond.
The defense's objection is overruled.
Why can't he see things my way once in a while?
Mr. Dingling, I'm sorry, but we need you to testify about your physical condition. If you have any doubts about your ability to testify, we can request expert testimony.
The witness will have no problem. However, let's all be respectful towards him.
Thank you.
That woman will sink to any low. To win a case.
Acro's physical state. Okay. Na dann erzähl mal. I suppose I could have lifted something the size of that bust. I have strong upper body from working as an acrobat, and only my legs were injured. However, lifting the bust and looking out of the window would have been impossible. There's no way I could have exerted that kind of force on my lower body. That makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the Ringmaster's head. Thus, it would be unrealistic for me to drop the bust on him, don't you think?
Yeah.
I have no doubts in regards to this witness's testimony.
Es klingt schlüssig. It was impossible for him to lift the bust and stick himself out far enough to look. Not to mention that he could not have known the location of the Ringmaster's head. A single false step would have lead to even more severe injuries.
That's what I was thinking. What is your opinion on the matter, Mr. Wright? Ja, er muss ja nicht zwingend treffen, ne? Er kann sich einfach mal versuchen, ne? Ja gut, das wäre auch ein bisschen lame. I'd still like to proceed with my cross-examination. He's simply stalling. It's shameful, really. Ja, sagt die Richtige, ne? Can't let her get to me. I've got to focus. Yes. Kriegen das hin. Suppose I could have lifted. Ja, das stimmt. Ja. Only my legs were injured. Die Frage ist, darf ich pressen? Ich würde sagen, ich probiere es aus an der Stelle, die am verdächtigsten ist. Da probiere ich es auszupressen. However, lifting the bust and looking out the window would have been impossible. There's no way I could have exerted that kind of force on my lower body. Thus it would be unrealistic for me to drop the bust on him, don't you think? Akra's strong enough to lift up the bust. The main problem is how he could have aimed for the ringmaster's head. I wonder if he used some kind of tool to aim for the ringmaster. Kind of tool to aim for the ringmaster. That's the ticket, Nick. Show them what you've got. I have to be careful. I have to find something that fits perfectly with the case. I don't remember us finding any sort of tool. But maybe we overlooked something. A tool that... Irgendwas, was ihm geholfen hat, zu zielen. Moment, das heißt, das Fishy Statement. Hier, ne? Nein, hier. Makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the ringmaster's head. Das ist das Fishy, ne? Hier müssen wir was präsenten, was ihm geholfen hat, seinen Kopf zu treffen. Wir pressen mal. Why do you say it would be impossible? Allow me to explain. Except that if I was carrying the bust, I couldn't see out below the window. Thus, there is no way that I would know the location of the ringmaster's head. Well, I suppose you've got a point. Hey, Nick. Huh? What if you turn things around? Maybe if you think of it sort of like this. If he knew the location of the ringmaster's head, then he could drop the bust. That does make sense. If only I could prove somehow that Akra knew the location of the ringmaster's head without looking down. I think I've already explained things sufficiently. Ah, ja, stimmt. Das haben wir vorhin schon erwähnt, ne? Hier. Die Box. Die hat ihn ja dahin gelockt, ne? Und wenn er die Box, vielleicht, keine Ahnung, aufheben wollte und wegtragen wollte, dann würde er vielleicht genau am richtigen Ort stehen, ne? Vielleicht hat er die extra so geplaced oder irgendjemand anders. Weiß nicht, ob er das so hinplacen kann. Vielleicht ein Komplize oder so, weiß nicht. Wobei, auf jeden Fall, die Kiste stand halt an dem Ort, wo er sein musste, ne? Ziemlich sicher. Acro. You didn't really need to lean out of the window, did you? What are you driving at, Mr. Wright? You already knew ahead of time where the ringmaster's head was going to be. Quite precisely, I may add. Your silly hinting at things is pointless, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Enough stalling. How about you show us some evidence? But I did such a good job hinting. Yes. Hurry up and explain things, Mr. Wright. Maybe you should take a look at this. The key point here is the wooden box. The same wooden box that the victim was found hunched over. The same. The question is, who placed the wooden box here? Who?
When Ben and company saw the ringmaster, they didn't see him holding a box. Which means that this wooden box was already placed at the scene of the crime.
I have to admit that your theory makes a lot of sense.
The moment that the bust came falling down was exactly the same moment that the ringmaster lifted up this wooden box. Which means that the answer to all these questions is now crystal clear.
You mean, if the bust were to fall upon the point marked out by the wooden box?
There would be no way that it could miss the head of the victim.
No. Order! This is unbelievable. Finally, some of these loose ends are starting to tie themselves up. Now I just gotta keep going, and there's only one way to go from here. Forward. So the next question I have is, who placed that wooden box at the scene?
Das ist, it was Mr. Dingling, of course. Okay, danke Phoenix, dass du mir die Entscheidung abnimmst. He connected it to a rope, and then all he had to do was lower it down. Ow!
Allow me to whip some sense into you, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Ow! The ringmaster's head could have been anywhere when he lifted the box.
That's why the box was so specially made.
Specially made?
Indeed. It has the most peculiar feature. The size of the box, the weight of the box, the contents of the box. Der Weight, weil sie so schwer ist, dass er so richtig sich drüber lehnen muss. Und sie so aufheben. Wenn sie nicht schwer ist, kann er sie einfach vielleicht sogar ziehen oder so. Ich sag mal weight. The box has a remarkable weight.
Weight? According to the court record, it weighs 20 pounds.
Just to lift up this wood box would have required...
Oh, I see. One would have to squat down, then lift it up with their body. Wouldn't you say?
That's exactly what I was trying to point out. The box is also very large.
The box also has carrying handles on either side, doesn't it?
That is correct. To lift up the box, you'd have to squat down, which means that no matter who you are, your head would be in approximately the same place.
Fool!
Doesn't even bother to listen to me anymore.
I've heard what you've had to say. I must admit, I'm shocked at your imaginative skills. Did you do it? Did you place this wooden box in the plaza?
Mr. Wright,
may I have a vivid imagination? Mr. Wright may have a vivid imagination, but I could never have done what he's proposing.
What?
Mr. Wright, do you recall the original location of Max's bust?
Yeah, I remember. Of course I remember. It was on top of the table in the cafeteria. But it was stolen.
Then what happened to it? I'd like you to remember one important fact, Mr. Wright. I could not possibly leave the lodging house by myself. Ah, that means... You understand what I mean, don't you? I may very well have been able to drop the bust from my room. However, how would I have gotten the bust from the cafeteria to my room?
You see, Mr. Phoenix Wright, explain that. Don't forget, you said there was no accomplice. Ah! Well, maybe there was. Tell us exactly how the witness would have carried the bust from the cafeteria. Yep, we definitely have a problem here, but this is no place to get perplexed. Got to get my wits about me and prove how things happened once and for all.
Alright, Mr. Wright, let's hear your explanation. How did the witness
get the bust back from the cafeteria to this room. How? Also nicht... Also ist jetzt hier nicht die Frage von dem Witness, ne? Sonst wäre die Frage anders gestellt, oder? In seinen Raum. Ja, wer hat die Bust gestohlen? Oder doch Witness? Hier wird ja wieder nur Regina in Frage kommen, weil sie immer mal wieder in seinem Zimmer vorbeikommt und ihm Sachen bringt. Aber er hat jetzt ausdrücklich erwähnt, keine Komplizen. Haben wir Evidence. Also, die Bust, ja, die fehlt, um die geht es. Die Note kann damit nichts zu tun haben. Das Grand Prix-Foto. Nee. Pfeffer. Der Pfeffer war's. Die Box, die war unten. Autopsy Report hat auch nichts damit zu tun. Der Löwe hat die Bust gefressen. Ganz klare Sache. Der Affe. Ja, das all sorts of shiny objects. Die Bust ist nicht shiny. Und, ja. Oder? Ist die shiny? Und vor allem, kann der die überhaupt heben? Aber er könnte... Ja... Vielleicht könnte der Affe die Bust nach oben getragen haben. Aber wie gesagt, ist doch... Ich meine, was ist das für ein Affe? Der sieht hier auf dem Foto wie ein Waschlappen aus. Um ehrlich zu sein. Haben wir die Bust vielleicht? Okay, sie ist shiny, ja? Sie glitzert. Sie glitzert. Das ist vielleicht tatsächlich ein Hinweis. Ich meine, die müssen auf dem Foto ja die Bust nicht glitzern lassen. Müssen die nicht. Aber sie haben es getan, weil das ein Hint auf das sein könnte, ne? Ich bin immer noch der Meinung, es ist zu schwer für den Kleinen, aber die Hints, Leute, die Hints, die sind stark. Das, was anderes hier macht keinen Sinn, ne? Ne. Ja, ich probier's mit dem Affen. A monkey. Everyone knows Money. He loves shiny objects of any size. Oh, like when he stole the ventriloquist's ring. So, are you saying the witness had a monkey steal the bust? Of course he didn't order the monkey to steal it. The monkey stole it on his own and then brought it back home. Home? Money lives in Acro's room. Acro's room? But the bust was bronze, wasn't it? Bronze isn't all that shiny. Ja, die Karten haben geglänzt. Maybe you should put the whip down sometimes and read the court record. My, those are some very nice cards he's holding. Yes, and they are made of platinum. Oh, which is very shiny. Acro. Money's a strong monkey, right? It'd be easy for him to bring the bust back to your room. Ist er strong? Weiß ich nicht. Wie gesagt, er sieht aus wie ein Waschlappen. If he wasn't able to handle that himself, I'd be on the market for a new roommate. Ach so. Okay, ja dann. Order! I said order! Miss von Karma! Where's the bust in question at this moment? I don't know. We're searching for it as we speak. This is a rather strange turn of events. But let's say that the monkey had not stolen the bust. What would have happened then? Well, in that event, something else would have been used as the murder weapon. Wait. Then you mean this bust was the murder weapon purely by accident? It's possible. Maybe Acro saw Money's mountain of stolen goods and thought to use one of them. Anyways, I think we've more than proven one critical fact. Namely that it was entirely possible that Acro was the murderer. Moron. Mr. Wright's argument was so circular, I'm still a bit dizzy. However, his argument does hold water. There's no denying that. Ow! Don't seem so flamboozled, especially by this fraud of an attorney. Fraud? You've forgotten the absolute most important thing, Mr. Phoenix Wright. And what is that? You should know. You forgot that your fraud of a magical client was spotted at the scene of the crime. Ah! Ja, das hatte ich auch schon angesprochen. Er kann ja nicht da drin stecken in dem Mantel. There is no reason to doubt the clown's testimony. That's true. How do you respond to that, Mr. Wright? Nick, don't let her beat you now. I won't. This is my chance to turn this trial around. When the murder occurred, there were two people at the scene of the crime. One was the victim, Russell Berry, and the other was the murderer himself. Answer this, and only this, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Who was the murderer the clown saw? Der Affe? Ja, keiner? Vielleicht? Es war niemand da, es war nur der Mantel. Vielleicht hat der Mantel so ausgesehen. Als wäre es eine Person. Aber es war ja niemand da. Also es kann ja literally niemand hier gewesen sein. Es geht nicht. Ist unmöglich. Von daher muss es irgendwas in der Evidence sein. Der Hut, der ist runtergefallen. Wäre auch die Frage, wenn es eine Person gewesen wäre, hätte er nicht dann seinen Hut wieder mitgenommen? Wahrscheinlich, ne? Um keine Beweise zu hinterlassen. Das heißt, es war ziemlich sicher keine Person. Aber was muss ich drücken? Promo-Poster. Muss ich einfach... Es war einfach nur der Mantel. Muss ich das drücken? Aber... Circus Map... Money... Der Affe. Und wie ist es wieder nach oben geflogen? Phoenix hat vorhin mal was von einem Seil erzählt, ne? Dass er die Kiste mit einem Seil runtergelassen hat. Vielleicht ist der Mantel auch an einem Seil befestigt und hat ihn so nach oben getragen. Aber das Problem ist, er hatte den Mantel ja gar nicht. Der Ringmaster hatte den Mantel an. Er kann den Mantel nicht an einem Seil befestigt haben. Das geht auch nicht. Mann! Er hat den Affen an einem Seil befestigt. Oh Mann, okay. Jokes aside. Ja, also an einem Seil befestigt haben wir ja dann höchstens die Bast. Damit er die Bast wieder nach oben ziehen kann. Eventuell. Das würde Sinn machen. Aber dann... ja, soll ich dann die Bast klicken? Dass man hat die Bast gesehen, aber... aus irgendeinem Grund hatte die einen Mantel an. Alter, wir kriegen 3 Schaden. Also, aber die Frage ist, who was the murderer the clown saw? Wer war der Mörder? Die Bast. Quasi. Weil die sieht ja auch aus wie Max, ne? Sie hat ja auch einen Zylinder auf. Ah, vielleicht
Vielleicht hat er tatsächlich den Zylinder, also ja, vielleicht hat er das gesagt, weil er den Zylinder halt von der Bast gesehen hat. Er hat ja nicht gesehen, wie der Zylinder auf den Boden gefallen ist. Aber er hat ja die ganze Zeit den Zylinder von der Bast gesehen. Ich drücke jetzt einfach das, oder? Aber es ist verdammt viel Schaden. Ich kann nicht einfach 3 Schaden riskieren, aber es ist glaube ich, das Beste, was ich habe, oder? Take that. He saw Max's... Ow! I asked who was the other person Mo saw on the scene. That evidence has nothing to do with the question. Oh, danke, Phoenix. Au contraire, mon frère. It does indeed have something to do with the question. Mo said that he saw Max's silhouette. But he did not actually see the man himself. It wasn't a human being he saw. Oh yeah. How is that possible? It's simple, really. What Mo actually saw that night was Max's bust. What are you talking about? Have you tried using your brain at all in this case? The silhouette he saw was wearing a cloak. There's no reason why you couldn't attach a cloak to the bust. Aber wie? It would be easy to hang one off of the cards in the bust's hands. Idiot, who in their right mind would put a cloak on a bust? It doesn't matter who put it on the bust. Just wait a minute now, Mr. Wright. Who put the cloak on the bust? That question is of the utmost importance to this case. Don't you agree? Ah, he caught me. So let's have it, Mr. Wright. Who put the cloak on the bust? Ach, schon wieder 3 Schaden. Who to put the cloak on the bust? Der Ringmaster? Er hatte den Cloak an, aber warum soll er den Cloak da ranpacken? Vor allem, er wurde ja getroffen. Aber er ist halt derjenige, der den Cloak anhatte. Von daher, ich kann ja nur ihn drücken. Es war ja niemand anderes da. Fool, him? You are saying it was the victim himself, Russell Berry. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the victim himself placed the cloak on the bust. Place the cloak isn't really the right way of putting it. Then what would be the right way of putting it, Mr. Wright? Explain yourself. Nick, do you really have a handle on all of this? I'm fine, Maya. I'm finally putting all the pieces together. There's really only one picture I can paint anyways. Alright, so you want to know what really happened that night? Let's step back in time. Acro used a rope to lower the wooden box onto the scene. Then he attached the rope to the bust. Genau, das hatte ich ja auch die Idee. And dangled the bust out of his bedroom window directly above the wooden box. At the same time, the ringmaster told Max to wait in his room and went to the scene. Of course, at the time, the ringmaster was wearing Max's costume. Perhaps he didn't want anyone to recognize him that night. Oder es war einfach kalt. But just as he feared, he was spotted at the entrance of the lodging house. By none other than a ventriloquist and his puppet Ben and Trilo. When the ringmaster arrived at the scene, he bent over to lift the wooden box. Was ich mich auch noch frage, warum ist er überhaupt da hingegangen? Ich meine, er wusste ja nicht, dass da eine Box wäre, die er aufheben möchte. Warum ist er überhaupt da hingegangen? Ja. And that's when Acro took his chance and released the rope. Now this is when the magic happens. At the very instant of the bust hit the victim. Boots. Ja, genau. Flup. Magnetisch.
You just wait a second there, Mr. Phoenix Wright. As much as you try. As much as you scheme, this isn't true. It can't be.
It's still a little early to be getting so upset, Miss Von Karma. The circus isn't over yet.
What?
Floop. The impact of the bust on the victim threw the cloak up, which snagged onto the bust. And the impact also caused the sound a certain witness heard, prompting him to take a look. That witness was, of course, Lawrence Moe Curls, the clown. When Moe looked out his window, the cloak had already snagged onto the bust. Now, having completed the crime, Akron naturally went about pulling up the murder weapon. Of course, he had no idea that Moe saw the bust being raised with the cloak dangling on it. Primarily because in his wheelchair he couldn't see out of his window. So he just kept pulling the bust up. Und hat damit Magic gewirkt. And that is how the magical murderer disappeared into the sky came to be. Applaus. Whoa, Phoenix! Nice! Okay, kein Applaus für mich. Okay, gut. So you see, the only person who could have pulled this off is the one person who was able to drop the murder weapon from above the crime scene. Acro, it could only have been you.
Acro's been playing mind games with all of us.
He sure has. But he has come to the end of his rope now. His rope. So, what now? You've graced us with a rather long-winded tale. But do you have any evidence to prove that your fairy tale is true?
Evidence?
In this court, only two things matter: the power of evidence and the power of my whip.
Don't forget the power of my gavel as well. Mr. Wright, the prosecution brings up a good point. Can we see some evidence?
Nick, they say they want evidence. I just explained how there can only be one possible murder method. But there's still something unusual about Moe's eyewitness account.
Unusual?
A contradiction, actually.
Okay then, you start and get out of this jam.
Contradiction? Was hat Moe gesagt?
That's enough talking amongst yourselves. Proceed, Mr. Wright. Present some evidence to the court that backs your claim. I want hard proof that you have unraveled the trick to this magic case.
What? Wait, was hat Moe gesagt? Moe hat das Thump gehört. Dann hat er gesagt, er hat Bob gesehen, wie er hochfliegt. Ah, warte, ist es vielleicht... Er hat gesagt, er hat alle Symbole außer die Rosen gesehen, oder? Das heißt auch den Hut. Haben alle erwähnt, dass sie den Hut gesehen haben. Dabei war der Hut am Boden. Wenn das alle sagen, dann ist es vielleicht ja wahr, ne? Weil der Hut müsste ja am Boden sein. Das bedeutet, sie haben nicht den Hut gesehen, sondern der Hut von der Bust. Das bedeutet, es muss die Bust gewesen sein. Ne? Ist die Frage, presse ich den Hut oder die Bust? Wir haben jetzt die Bust schon, glaube ich, zweimal präsentiert. Ich glaube, ich presse den Hut. Aber wir kriegen 3 Schaden, verdammte Scheiße. Aber ja, das könnte eigentlich... Ich glaube, der Hut wäre richtig, weil das ist die Contradiction. Die Contradiction, dass sie keinen Hut gesehen haben können, beziehungsweise, wenn sie ihn wirklich gesehen haben, muss es die Bast sein. Ja, komm. The problem is Max's three symbols. You know, the silk hat, the cloak, and the white roses.
Those symbols were a problem numerous times during yesterday's proceedings.
Yesterday, there were two contradictions in most testimony.
The silk hat was one, the white roses were the other.
But the theory I just presented explained all of these contradictions.
You fool, do you ever shut up?
Max's silk hat was found at the scene of the crime. However, remember what Mo said yesterday. He testified that the criminal he saw fleeing the scene was wearing a silk hat. There's only one explanation for that. The silk hat that Mo saw was actually the bust's. Yes.
Makes sense. If you look at it that way, then he did see the silk hat. Well, sort of.
Fine, you've got one. But what about the other contradiction?
The other contradiction?
Remember what the ventriloquist said in court. He said he witnessed the white roses on Max's chest that night. But the clown's testimony doesn't match. Das war halt mit dem Rücken. The clown said that there were no white roses. The clown said there were no white roses. I'd like to see you try and explain that one away.
Can you do it, Nick?
Of course, and I can explain all of it.
Oh, what was that?
Please recall the instant when the cloak snagged onto the bust. The cloak snagged onto the bust. If the cloak, what happened to the white roses? Sie sind halt gegen die Bust gedreht, ne? Do you get it yet? The cloak gets snagged onto the front of the bust. It means that the white roses would end up on the back of the bust.
Ah!
Which explains why Mo didn't see them. The white roses were not visible because they were on the backside of the bust.
Order! Order! This is quite the shocking state of affairs. Mr. Wright's theory still sounds a bit absurd to me. However, let's just keep going down this road for a while and see where it leads. Let's do this, Nick. Maybe Von Karma will finally throw in the towel.
Ja, natürlich.
Well, so much for that theory. Mr. Wright, do you mind?
What is it?
You took the time to research our circus, didn't you?
Well, yes, I did. There's something making you think that I didn't.
If you did, then maybe you'll understand why I think you're off track.
Why is that? Motive. This witness feels an incredible depth of gratitude towards the ringmaster. Anyone with any relation to the circus is well aware of this. Ja. Das ist true. Thus, there is absolutely no way someone like this would kill the ringmaster. Your Honor, I'd like you to hear Akro's story. Learn about his relationship with the ringmaster and his life up until now.
What do we do? There's no doubting that Akro deeply respected the ringmaster.
Akro's motive.
Seems that this case isn't over yet. Very well. However, I feel this is a good place to take a break.
Denke ich auch, danke, Judge.
I will listen to the rest of Mr. Dingling's testimony after recess. This court will now take a 10-minute recess.
Whew, to be continued. Ja, das war wirklich ein guter Punkt zum Stoppen. Danke dir, Judge. Bro. Okay, also. Wir sind überzeugt, dass Akro das Ding ins Rollen gebracht hat. Oder ins Fallen, besser gesagt. den Ringmaster umgebracht hat. Jetzt ist nur noch die Frage vom Motiv. Ja, und das werden wir hoffentlich im nächsten Part herausfinden. Wie immer. Tja, und bis dahin würde ich sagen, ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Bis dahin, macht's gut, Leute. Und tschö.